From the Skyterra Wellness Retreat, this is the Inspired Intentions Podcast, where we help people build the skills and mindset to live a healthy life. Hey everyone, before we dive into today's episode, if you've been enjoying our podcast, take a moment to rate and review. It may seem like a small thing, but our ratings and reviews make a huge difference in the quality of our show. They help us reach more listeners like you so we can continue bringing you more amazing content. So, if you've found inspiration, learned something new, or just love tuning in every week, please rate the Inspired Intentions Podcast 5 stars and leave us a review and even share with a friend. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now let's get into the show. Inspired Intentions listeners, it is an interesting time of year again. We recently here at Skyterra Wellness announced our fantasy football league starting.
Yes.
Our Intercompany Fantasy Football League. Very competitive, very prestigious, super fun. And I have a fellow member of this fantasy football league in the booth with me that you just heard from.
Hi, listeners. Wait, Alan, you are selling both of us short for what we are to the Skyterra's Fantasy Football League.
Yeah, that's true. We are running that thing this year.
We are co-commissioners.
We're making sure nobody cheats.
Yes.
It's all fair. Everything goes nice and smooth.
Yes. And that everybody has a great time and learns to love football as much as we do.
Very true. Very true. It was super fun last year.
It was fun.
16 games. If you guys, listeners out there, have ever done fantasy football, then you get it. But for anybody that hasn't, we just sent an email out and asked for people to join on as team managers. And Rachel and I put together all the rules and made the account and everything. And we announced it all yesterday.
I forget who won last year.
You do? Do you need me to remind you? I'll go pull the trophy off my desk and show you. Actually, no, I think Debbie has it upstairs.
Just making sure you had that opportunity, Alan.
I appreciate that. I know you love talking about how much, or I know you love expressing how much you wish you would have won last year.
Yeah, it's a learning experience, I think. Figuring out what works, what doesn't work. I've learned a lot about what doesn't work.
Have you done it 3 years?
Oh, I think 4.
4?
Yeah.
I will say for sure, both of us, the past 2 to 3 years, we've gotten much better.
Yeah.
Especially the past 2.
I mean, and not coming in last has been an improvement.
Yeah. Did you come in? Oh, that is right. That first year.
Yeah. That's okay.
That's okay.
It's learning.
It's very true.
Yeah.
But on the note of fantasy football, that also means what?
Well, it means we have our flannel shirts on.
Mm-hmm.
We have our cozy beanies.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're both holding cups of hot drink and blowing off the steam.
You can see the steam. You're definitely holding a pumpkin spice latte.
Yes. We have our tall socks on and brown boots because it's almost fall.
It is almost fall. As of today, it is about a month away from technical fall in September. And we wanted to do an episode to tell you all about fall in Western North Carolina, Asheville, Brevard at Skyterra.
And how special of a season fall is here. Just making sure that everybody has resources and just that you're really aware of all of the special things that happen here during that season.
Because people ask all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I had somebody asking me yesterday, what's the temperature like? What is it like here? What do you guys do?
So we're going to ask Alan, who is an expert at all things outdoors and all things fall, to give us really a guide to fall in Western North Carolina.
Be happy to do it. I feel like we talk about it all the time here.
Yeah. So, Alan, this isn't actually anything that I put on our list of questions, so I'm just going to throw you a curveball right from the beginning. I feel like it'll be fine. What is I know that you did not necessarily grow up in this specific area, but what is it that you love about fall in this area?
I am by far a cold weather guy.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up too far away from here. It was still mountains, very similar elevation, similar topography. But leading into the holiday season, knowing that some of that special stuff's coming up around the corner, the cold weather, I love putting a hoodie on in the morning. If I am sweating in the middle of the summer somewhere, like when I visit the beach, I'm like, I couldn't live at the beach.
Okay.
It is by far the climate and the temperature that we get here in Western North Carolina. It's pretty special. If I had to boil it down to one thing, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just what is it? I mean, what is that climate like and the temperature? What does make it so special here in the fall?
We're at about 2,500 feet above sea level here at Skyterra Wellness. When you look out at our campus, across the valley, you can see the top of the mountains. Some of those peaks are ranging at 6,000 feet. So you get a cool little vast difference in temperature between here and just what you can see at the top. But here in the valley, it's pretty great. Like most of the time in prime time fall, it's not really getting colder than 50 degrees in the middle of the night, maybe upper 40s. But during the day is really the special part. It rarely gets above like mid upper 70s ever.
Okay.
Most of the time it's going to be like 60 something, kind of like it was today, this morning, how good it felt. It's like that all day.
Little chilly. In a crisp way.
You don't really need extra layers by any means, but it is cool enough that, you don't mind being outside in the direct sun. It doesn't, asphalt doesn't feel hot in the parking lots. When you're on the trail, you don't sweat as much. It's really quite nice. So that like 50-ish, 70-ish degree range is really the overall temperature. And for me, that's perfect. I don't know how you feel about it, but that's where I want it to be. If I could hit pause and just keep that temperature all year long, I would do it.
You would do it.
Yeah.
And so you're able to really do all of the outdoor activities that you love and not be freezing and not be sweating.
I mean, that's kind of a common misconception that, we can't do a lot of things in the fall. Midday, we can still get on the water, which is cool. Can still pretty much do everything that we do during the summer. It's just not quite as hot. We typically get a little less rain here too during that time of year, which is nice. For those of you that don't know where Skyterra is located, is a rainforest. We get over 120 inches of rain a year, which is great. Everything's lush and green. But, during fall time, there's usually a little bit less rain.
So again, ideal for being outside.
Pretty much.
Really, I grew up in upstate New York, and September was really fall, and then October became winter. So a lot different from where I'm from originally.
Yeah, we were looking at the forecast up there yesterday, and like there's a couple of already 50-degree highs for the days right now.
Yeah.
In August.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. The Great Lakes are no joke when it comes to keeping everything cool up there.
Right.
But that is not here. It's funny, Alan, we were talking, just starting to get into some of the other beautiful things about this area. So it is towards the end of August when we're recording this, and there is one tree starting to change colors, not on our campus. I can see it up behind the main building, one of those high peaks. And it's just one, but it's pretty obvious. Like, here we go. It's starting to change. And so let's talk about the colors.
Oh, yeah.
What's it like around here when the leaves start to change color?
Yeah, I think you got to talk about the fact that it's a rainforest again to really do that answer any justice. That we have a ton of biodiversity here. It being a rainforest, there's two words in rainforest. One of them's rain. We talked about that one. But the other one's forest, which means we just have a ton of biodiversity. A lot of different trees that all turn different colors. Oh. So it's not like a one note or a two note red or yellow. We get it all. Everything that you can imagine, all the shades. We've got all the maple trees, all the different color hardwoods, all the poplars. And then we have a bunch of evergreens that stay green. So you get these little pops and kind of groves of green throughout the mountains. So you get pretty wide variety of physical color throughout. And it does depend on kind of where you are, but it's like that from the top all the way to the bottom of the mountains.
Mm-hmm. And it starts at the top?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have, I kind of tried to describe it a little bit earlier, but like where Skyterra is in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're looking out at the top of the mountains and then from campus. And then technically behind us, there's also mountains that rise behind us as well. So we're kind of in a bowl, if you can imagine.
Okay.
And there's a river that has created that. And so depending on where you're at in that bowl, whether you're in the bottom of the bowl or the rim, you get different color at different times of year. So the color starts at the top and then it works its way down to us because it's going to be colder up there. It's usually 10 degrees colder than it is down here when you're up there. That's can be all the way up at like 6,000 feet. And then it works its way all the way down here to 2,500 feet, which is really neat. So really any time in October is great for that and great for that color and being able to see it pretty much, a little bit more than a month all the way into, that first part of November that you can actually see leaf color. So you go up there at the very beginning of October, sometimes even the very end of September at 6,000 feet, you start to see leaf color change. And then it's just like a wave kind of all the way down to us. And then that can even last into November. We had a year, I think it was the year 2020, where we still had leaves and color down here almost into December.
Wow.
Which was pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can go on a really nice long drive and see everything. And you kind of can like find the zone in which it's best per day because every day is a little different.
Oh.
Like if you're in a spot, it may be, we call it peak. It may be peak color for a day or two in that spot. And you might drive 15 minutes down the road or up the road and it's peak there the next day.
That's so cool.
So it's always changing, definitely based upon temperature.
Listeners, if you have never been to Skyterra or if you have, Alan is definitely a guest favorite because of the way that he is so not only knowledgeable about the outside, but able to guide our guests on what they're seeing and providing more information. And Alan, I know I've said this to you before, but you are just so poetic in the way that you describe the outdoors. It's very obvious how knowledgeable you are, but also how much you appreciate and are grateful for the outside. So I just am also grateful for your perspective on this because you describe it in such a lovely way.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yeah.
I'm also very animated with my hand gestures is what you guys can't see. So I'm trying not to hit the microphone here, but I'm doing a wave with my hand as I describe this. So
I love that imagery though, but just like almost if you had a time-lapse camera on the colors moving down that bowl towards Skyterra is really beautiful.
Yeah, funny you bring up time-lapse. It's pretty cool. If you're here in the month of October, and I'll try to do it again this year, but we posted some images last year, I think on like our Instagram story of a specific tree every other day for like a month.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to watch it basically go from being green to being empty.
Yes.
And it just like, there were, a few days there where it was peak and it kind of shows that off. But there's one specific maple tree that we'll try and do that again for this year. That was super cool.
So let's talk about, so we know, obviously you can drive, but if you are a guest at Skyterra during the time when this is happening, so if you're here in October, what do we do for the guests to be able to go out and see that color?
Yeah. One of the major things that I have control over is scheduling the hikes. So I try and schedule hikes for folks or outdoor recreation activities of any kind that time of year in the area where I think the color is going to be the best. So, people aren't missing out, and we may change on the fly if it's like, that day we may move it a little bit. So it's a moving target, but I'm always trying to hit it for folks so that they can see the most and the best out of everything that we schedule, that is off campus or around campus that time of year. So that's one big thing that we do. We do a drive. So just kind of a leaf tour drive called the La Tour de Transylvania. So it's this big like loop that you can drive, and you start low in the valley, and then you're going to drive up to the top of the mountains, what I was describing. You drive down what's called the Blue Ridge Parkway. If you haven't been on it, America's Road, you can go look up the website. It's actually a federal park Technically speaking, it runs all the way through North Carolina, but we are blessed to be super close to it. We can drive all the way up to it and down, and then you drive back down, so you can hit any part of the leaf color within that. Like somewhere within that drive, we're going to see it, and we'll just stop where it's at and enjoy it. Possibly stop at some roadside attractions along the way and things. So for somebody that even doesn't want to hike and they just want to go see pretty stuff, we do that too.
Yeah. I'm assuming that we have guests visit Skyterra who don't necessarily live in a place where the leaves change like they do here. What's their experience if they're seeing all the colors for the first time?
It's so beautiful. I love the leaf color change. And then I've seen it all the time. I've seen it every year, right? But then you have somebody that's never seen it, and that happens every year. And I'm kind of in awe of that person, like a little jealous, like what that experience must be like. It's probably hard to describe if you really appreciate nature and you see that kind of color burst in nature, in our mountains and the ridges, and even the pops of green and all the different pieces to it. I'm sure it's probably hard to describe for them.
Yeah.
I see a lot of awe in them. Take a ton of photos. Stop, pull over here. Kind of, that kind of reaction. And just like, man, I don't have that where I live. I didn't grow up seeing that, or I didn't grow up doing that.
Yeah.
And it's so special. You live in such a cool place. Like, you hear it all.
Any other suggestions for folks who maybe are not visiting Skyterra but will be visiting the Brevard, Asheville area on where to go to see the color?
Yeah, I mean, Blue Ridge Parkway is always a top. There's always going to be folks driving that's at the top of the mountains, so you can kind of see everything from there. Don't be scared to take some of the other roads around. So don't get complacent and just think that it like happens in one place. Move around a little bit and enjoy it.
Explore.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Because I would imagine the Blue Ridge Parkway gets busy, trafficky.
It can. It can for sure. But again, it's only peak there for a few days, and then it kind of starts moving down. So you kind of, again, drive around, explore to find where the color's the best, if that's what you're specifically looking for.
Okay. Let's go back to that image of us in our perfectly curated fall clothing and our hot fall pumpkin spice drink. I think we're headed to an apple farm. That's where we would go wearing that outfit.
Yeah.
So what?
That sounds typical. Instagram perfect.
Yeah, Instagram perfect. I did go to an apple farm last year at the start of fall, and it was just such a great way to start the season. I think I bought candy apple, pumpkin pie, a pumpkin for decoration. It's just
cider.
I did have cider.
Yeah.
So what else besides the beautiful foliage? What else is there to do in the western North Carolina, Brevard, Asheville area?
Yeah, we're super fortunate that apples grow really well here. So you're spot on with the apple farm. We take folks to a place that's not actually really close, just up the road. It's a kind of pretty renowned apple farm orchard that is giant. I mean, the place is huge. The family that owns that place has curated it and built it in such a way it's very thoughtfully laid out. They have a lot of flower gardens as well, tons of great parking, big cidery, gift store with all the apple things that you could buy, like really nice facility. It's called Jeter Mountain Farms, and they're just right up the road. They're really great. We take folks there pretty often. We really like that one. We go to a lot of festivals. One really cool thing, I mean, this is any time of year you come here, there's probably always a festival going on somewhere near us in western North Carolina, specifically here, whether that be, Brevard, Hendersonville, Asheville. We're the closest to Brevard, Hendersonville, Asheville, second to that. There's always some type of fall festival going on, always, or any time of year, which is really cool. So we try and hit those as much as we can. There's events at the Biltmore that we can do this time of year. If you're not familiar with the Biltmore, you need to look that up.
Yes.
Biltmore House. We do a bunch of colorful waterfall tours, which is cool. I kind of mentioned hiking before. We do take folks to a lot of areas like that. Waterfalls that are just covered in colorful fall leaves are really cool. Wet rocks everywhere, wet leaves.
Yeah.
It's
like waterfalls are so beautiful on their own, as are the leaves, and putting them together is just magical.
Yeah, it's a different way to see it. It's a different experience. Parkway's got a ton of mountain views. We do that drive that I mentioned. We actually, like I was speaking about before, we still do a little bit of everything. You can do a fall leaf color paddle trip that's really cool. So you kind of book it in the afternoon when it's, that closer 70 something degrees, and you can go down the river and see all the color on the river. Cool. It's really cool. It's surrounded, and you got to think like it all reflects off the water that time of year too. So you can do that in a river or lake. That's pretty cool. What else? Oh yeah, there's still some fall leaves, but then there's also still some fall flowers that pop up around here that you can see. We have a ton of foliage around here, flora, fauna, and as part of that, we actually are part of the monarch butterfly migration route.
Oh,
yeah, which is pretty neat. I didn't know that. We didn't see a lot of them where I grew up at, and it's not too far away from here, but the first time that I saw them during the fall time, honestly at the very top of the mountains, I was kind of like, was that what I thought it was? But yeah, we get a monarch section of migration you can see them for usually a week and a half, 2 weeks. You're not going to see like a million of them, but you see quite a few, and there's one spot in particular that I'll take people to that's a little valley that you can go see them. It seems like they kind of like stop there to take a break before they drop into our valley, because they're moving from up north down south and further, all the way down around. There's a cool map you can look at online. I believe that they actually curve from here, I think, all the way down and around towards Texas. So they'll kind of go, from here down into South Carolina, down to Georgia, over across the coastline, and down into Texas, and even down into Mexico, which is pretty neat. So they have we're on their like East Coast migration route, which is pretty cool.
On the East Coast tour.
Yeah, exactly. We have, as far as density goes, it's pretty dense. It's not the densest, but it's pretty dense in monarchs, which is cool. And that was a surprise to me a couple years ago.
Yeah. I feel like we've talked in the spring, Alan, we talked about the blue ghost fireflies. And now, just with everything that this area has to offer, it just seems so rich, such a rich experience, especially for people who are looking for a new experience to happen outside.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I know. So, listeners, let me give you some of those resources. So, the Blue Ridge Parkway is the road to drive on that Alan mentioned. It's at the top of the mountains to see the colors.
Yep.
Jeter Mountain is that apple farm I have not been there, but that sounds really neat.
Oh, it's cool.
And then, of course, the Biltmore House. And then, of course, we would love for you to come to Skyterra, and Alan would love to show you around. And I'm sure if you know Alan, or if you've been listening to this podcast, he's just so knowledgeable about this area and just has a really grateful take on everything that we have to offer. So thanks again, Alan.
Of course. Absolutely. Happy to share with everyone. And for anybody that's thinking about coming, reach out if you have any other questions.
Let us know. Thanks, Alan.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rachel.
Bye, listeners.
Bye.
The Inspired Intentions podcast is a production of Skyterra Wellness Retreat. Special thanks to our executive producer, Alan Broyhill. Send us your questions and comments to inspiredintentions@skyterrawellness.com. Subscribe on iTunes and everywhere podcasts can be found. If someone you know might benefit from this podcast, share Inspired Intentions with them and give us a 5-star rating. Join us next week as we cut through the unrealistic noise on diets and fitness and show you how healthy living fits seamlessly into your already busy life. Thanks for listening.